Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here at my next Avatar The Last Airbender news update video. Obviously I've put one of these videos out already today, but just a few hours after I uploaded that one, some really big news that I've been waiting for just broke, and that is we got revealed what the next Avatar The Last Airbender comic series is. We got a big interview with Gene Yang with Comic Book Resources, so we know the title of this series, how many parts there's going to be, and some info on what it's about, as well as some release dates. So, lots of information on this to talk about today. Obviously, as you probably noticed from the video, I'm not on camera here. That's obviously because of when this news came out, wasn't able to... the light, I suppose, wasn't really good enough for me to record on actual camera, so I'm just doing some audio on this, and you guys get a look at the part 1 and 2 covers as you kind of watch this video. But yeah, lots of stuff to talk about here. Let's start off with the covers themselves. The series is called Smoke and Shadow, so straight away our 4th comic book series gets rid of the naming convention of the word related to the series. Instead, this one's called Smoke and Shadow. That works. It just takes out that whole thing of, we're always trying to predict what it's going to be called, the something. This works pretty well for me. The information we have doesn't really relate so much to the title, as I'll get to later on, but the cover for part 1, pretty interesting. Aang and Zuko with the Fire Nation kind of capital in the background. Pretty nice, just with the kind of backdrop of the kind of Fire Nation kind of capital city. Not a massive amount that you can really take from the series, because we know that Zuko is going to be the main character in this. We don't really know what Aang's involvement is going to be in the series, outside of, just he's obviously going to help Zuko throughout this, but we don't know if he has a specific story of his own in this. So, part 1 cover, pretty nice. We also get the part 2 cover, which actually makes sense given how long it has actually been since we got a comic announcement. Usually we would know, probably all 3 covers for a comic series at this point, but obviously after the Rift they took a break or something like that to plan the next series, and we're only getting information now. So the part 2 cover, really nice actually. A lot more to talk about in this one. One, you have the addition of May into the cover, as well as Aang and Zuko, plus all these kind of ninja type characters in the background who I assume are members of the new Ozai Society, which is what this comic book series is about. So straight away, a lot more interesting stuff going on here, and straight away you get the idea that one of the things that's going to be explored in this comic is the May and Zuko relationship, Maiko, whatever you want to say. And yeah, pretty interesting covers. Part 2 definitely more interesting than part 1. They really tend to go with a kind of super general cover for part 1 rather than trying to do anything fancy, which I suppose makes sense. But yeah, what they've been saying about this is actually pretty interesting. Obviously, the new Ozai Society is the kind of big thing that this series is going to be about in terms of a kind of conflict. And we have heard about the new Ozai Society before. If you remember back to the 2013 Free Comic Book Day free comic that was called Rebound. It was all about May and her dealing with, I suppose, her breakup with Zuko, and kind of deciding that next time she comes into contact with him, she's actually more open to kind of getting back together with him and stuff like that. It really showed the kind of connection that they had, and the kind of main plot of that was that her father kind of had started this whole thing, the new Ozai Society, and May basically took her brother Tom Tom away from him because she didn't like the idea of this new Ozai Society, because obviously being Zuko's kind of ex-girlfriend, she knows exactly what Ozai was about, and so can't support him anymore. And so, yeah, we get the idea going into this book that it's going to be heavily related to that, and also that it's going to deal with the fact that Zuko is going to deal with the new Ozai Society coming kind of, I suppose, fully out in the open for the first time, because their whole idea is that they support Ozai and want to get Zuko off the throne, and I suppose get Ozai back into power. And May, in the background, is leading this kind of rebellion more in the kind of among the people, not the kind of leadership of the Fire Nation, against the new Ozai Society. So I assume this will be a kind of where May and Zuko come back together, when you have, May leading this rebellion and Zuko fighting against them, and they kind of realize they're on the same side here, and maybe we'll get past some of their issues, because Zuko as a character has definitely worked past all of the issues that I suppose eventually led to May breaking up with him. So that's pretty interesting. As I said, Aang, we don't really know his full involvement other than just, he's the main character of the series, of the kind of whole franchise, basically. It makes sense that he would be involved somewhere in this as the Avatar. This would be a big issue helping his friend. That works. Creative team remains the same. Jean Luen Yang on writing and Team Gurihuru on art. Other than that, Jean Yang, also there was an interview, Comic Book Resources, link in the description to the actual free post where this was fully announced on Comic Book Resources. Some of the other points that we got here from some of the questions was that heavily hinted at that Azula will be involved in this book at some stage, that she will be coming back. I can definitely see that being like a cliffhanger ending to like part 2, going into part 3, like this kind of surprise appearance at the end, changing the course of battle. But at the same time, I'd almost think that bringing Azula back would have to involve some like deep backstory on her, so you'd maybe want to actually introduce her much earlier on in the series than part 2, 3. So very interesting to see how they approach that, because that's one of the key things that the comics have set up, haven't touched on just yet. We got confirmation it is going to explore May and Zuko's relationship in detail, with an I suppose extra focus on May as a character herself, since she's, of all the characters that we know of being like heavily involved in this, is probably the one we know the least about. So that's going to be pretty interesting to just get more May, because the rebound was actually really good, and then the May-Zuko relationship, which I know a lot of people like, I especially do. Next, Iroh, obviously Zuko's uncle, will have a role in the series. We don't specifically know what it is, but obviously Iroh is the kind of stand-in Fire Lord during the search, so he'll play a role. And they also mentioned that part of the plot, at least at the start, will be that Zuko is very eager to protect his family now that he kind of has them back. Like, obviously his mother has just kind of changed her face, got her identity back, but she's still married to Norin, and they have their own family. So Zuko kind of has this kind of half sister, as well as his actual sister and stuff like that. So he's very interested to protect his family as they're returning to the Fire Nation for the first time since the search, and the new Oasis Society obviously doesn't like this new Fire Nation family coming into play and stuff like that. So we pretty much have confirmation that at some point this series is going to explore, at the start at least somewhat, Zuko's relationship with his mother now, Zuko's relationship with his kind of stepfather, I suppose, Norin, and his stepsister, and stuff like that. So some pretty interesting stuff to come from Zuko in this. After that, he mentioned nothing really concrete on this, but there was definitely a hint that there are plans in the future of maybe some future comic series taking a bigger time jump when it comes to an end. So obviously, like, with a lot of time to play with, before you get anywhere near like the characters starting to have children and stuff like that, it would make sense that a bigger time jump does happen, where you could maybe have a series about stuff like Aang and Katara's wedding or something like that, like those type of things, them dealing with having kids for the first time. That's the sort of stuff we really want to see now that we've seen them much later on with their like grandkids and stuff like that in play, and some of the characters a lot older. It would be nice to get this kind of middle point where we've seen them as kids going into teenage years now in the comics. We've seen them a lot older. It'd be interesting to see them as like kind of young adults going into kind of full adulthood, stuff like that. Confirmation that there will be a spiritual element to this series, just like there has been in the previous 3. And the spiritual element here is actually said to be connected to May's father, who's obviously the head of the New Ozai Society. And it's said that there's a spiritual element to his actions, all of the actions that he takes as the head of the New Ozai Society. So that's an interesting concept. As to how exactly that works, does he feel that there's something spiritual, like that the New Ozai Society will balance the world or something like that? It's a really cool concept. But Yeah, I'm really excited for this series. As I said, the title doesn't really link too heavily into what's going on now. I assume, obviously, with ninjas involved, they are going to be more of this kind of clandestine organization, maybe trying to secretly do stuff in the background to take down Zuko and the new royal family, and all this sort of stuff. But what exactly the kind of plot is and how this society is specifically trying to take down Zuko is what we're going to have to wait for the book to actually come out for. But yeah, now for the release dates, I suppose we'll actually get into that. Yeah, part 1 is said to be coming out September 23rd, I believe. Let me just fully check this. I have the post open right now. So yeah, part 1 is going to be out September 23rd, 2015, and then part 2 is going to be out December 16th, 2015. Now, I have a calendar up here, and I'm going to check these dates. So September 23rd is a Wednesday. So yes, these are the comic book store release dates of these books. So that's the earliest we're going to get it. September 23rd for part 1. December 16th for part 2, and obviously you add 13 days onto that to get the Amazon release date / regular bookstore release date. So that's pretty interesting. That would mean that it would be what would it be? Looks like Tuesday, October 6th, probably for part 1, and then December 16th, that would be December 29th for part 2, if you're looking for those dates. But yeah, a lot of question people are asking is like, wait, why is this coming out like basically nearly a year from now? Like, it's what, 10 months until September now. Obviously this is the 1st of December, and then it's over a year until the part 2 comes out. And it definitely really asks the question, like usually like they're kind of, as the previous series is coming out, they're working on the next one, and we've known for a while that is the case with this, but why does it seem like the kind of schedule has gone behind? Like, usually you'd expect maybe the first part of these books to be coming out sometime around, March, April, but instead we're having to wait a lot later and get it in September. So clearly something has happened whereby they've taken a break after the first 3 comic series, and it seems like they've kind of planned out an idea for the next couple of series, and maybe they're working on ideas for maybe like really deep into the future of Avatar comics, or something like that. But right now the focus is on Smoke and Shadows, and probably Smoke and Shadow, no S on at the end, and the next series probably. But again, it's hard to know where exactly production is with these books. But I assume we'll be hearing more information over the next couple of months. But still, yeah, September 23rd is a really long time away, a long time to wait for our next piece of content. With Core coming to an end, this is the next big thing we'll be waiting for, and we're going to be waiting a long time for it. So definitely interesting. But yeah, in terms of a more personal opinion on this, I think this is a really cool idea for a comic. It plays into continuity set up specifically in the comics. It's a really interesting idea to see the kind of villains less about taking over the world and more just like dethroning Zuko. That's an interesting concept to me. They're going to explore stuff like Mai and Zuko getting back together. Their relationship will be cool. I really am interested to see if we get a lot more scenes with Zuko and his mother, his new stepsister and stuff like that. What his relationship is like with Noren, and of course, New Ozai Society. Will Ozai be involved in this, at all? Will Zuko go to Ozai for advice about this? Will Ozai have any opinion on this society that is kind of basically working for him without him having any knowledge of them? Really cool ideas. And then the other thing is that will Ursa go to confront Ozai or talk to him at some point? There's a lot of potential with this super Fire Nation focused book, so very excited for this one when it comes out in September. But yeah, that's been the video. Definitely in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are on this next comic series. we'll be talking about this announcement more on the podcast this Sunday when we also review episode 10 of Korra Book 4. That podcast will be recorded and released on Sunday, so check that out. But for now, comments, give me your thoughts. But yeah, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.